Hello everyone, my name is Dion Schuddeboom. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my experience using the Apple Watch Series 3 for the past 6 months. I will go over the pros and cons looking at display, features, durability, performance, storage, battery, and more. All to help you decide whether the Apple Watch Series 3 is the right Apple Watch for you. Before I get started, if you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend first watching my full Apple Watch Series 3 unboxing and review, in which I go over all of its features in detail, and then come back to this video to hear about my long-term experience using the watch. With that said, let's dive in. So to start off, I want to talk about the display. Now, the Series 3 comes in two screen sizes. There is the 38mm version and the 42mm version. Personally, I chose to go for the 38mm version as I found this to fit better on my wrist and be more proportionate. For those wondering, I have 55mm wrists, and if your wrists are anywhere the same size, I definitely recommend going for the smaller size. I chose to go for the black color as I found this to be more versatile and look better with most outfits, from more casual to formal wear. Now, 38mm is quite a small screen, so you might be wondering, is this usable? Well, in day-to-day use, I actually found it to be surprisingly usable and easy to navigate, never feeling too small. Text is surprisingly readable, never feeling too small when reading short messages, emails, or checking the news. When looking at photos, I found the screen to also be very detail-rich and colors really pop. And what is very important to me is that the screen is also very bright, making it easy to read even in the brightest of sunlight, as well as dim at night when checking the time. On its own, the display on the Series 3 is good. I actually have no complaints. That said, it is not as good as the Apple Watch SE, which is a little bit more expensive but does give you a bigger display with smaller bezels in almost the same watch size. Let's talk about performance. Now, my Apple Watch is currently running watchOS 7 and will soon be running the latest watchOS 8. This is where I do wish the Series 3 had more built-in storage, not just for music and photos, but mainly for installing updates. Recent watchOS updates require the Series 3 to be backed up, completely wiped, and then restored to install the update. And this makes the process quite inconvenient. In my opinion, the Series 3 is lasting even longer than Apple had thought. And while it does have the ability to run the latest software, it just doesn't have the storage, which is why they have to come up with these strange workarounds in order to make it work. That said, at the end of the day, of course, I would rather have the latest software updates and be able to install them than not at all. Speaking of storage, if you do plan to download a lot of music, apps, or other media, then I do recommend going for the Apple Watch SE, which comes with 32GB of storage, whereas the Series 3 only has 8, of which around 4 is actually usable. But aside from this, in terms of performance, my experience with the Series 3 has been great. It runs very smooth, it is snappy and fast when opening notifications, menus, or simply just using the watch in day-to-day. And this is really great. The only thing I will say is that some apps do take quite long to load, most notably Maps. This is an application I use quite frequently, and in terms of loading time, it is actually quicker for me to go into my pocket and grab my phone. But of course, the phone doesn't offer turn-by-turn directions on the wrist the way the Apple Watch does. Speaking of applications, app crashes are very rare and basically never occur. One thing I will say though is due to limited RAM on the Series 3, when switching between other open apps in multitasking, apps will frequently need to restart. That said, for me, this is not really an issue as unlike my phone, I don't typically switch between multiple apps on my Series 3. I will usually just launch an app, do a task, and then go back to my day. Let's talk about features. Now here I'm going to run through some of the features I found myself using the most over the past 6 months. And sometimes it's actually the smaller features that you end up valuing more. Alright, so first is notifications. Now I love getting notifications on my wrist. I find it to be far less intrusive and more subtle than a loud ding sound coming from my phone. That said, I do advise you be careful with how many notifications you let coming through to your watch so it's not going off all day. Personally, I only allow important notifications to come through to my watch, such as from messaging apps, allowing me to quickly check them as soon as they are received. And next, of course, is checking the time. Now on any watch, checking the time is of course crucial, and on the Series 3, the best way to do this is to rotate the wrist for the screen to automatically wake. Now as I mentioned in my review, I found the raise to wake feature to work very well on the Series 3. In fact, I find it to actually wake a little bit too often, but I'd rather have it turn on too often rather than too little. And the question here is, do I miss an always on display that you, for example, get with the Series 5, 6, or 7? And the answer to that is yes. I actually miss it a little bit more than I initially thought. And this is during a very specific circumstance, and that is when trying to check the time in a more subtle way. Let's say you're in a boring meeting and you don't just want to go like that, but rather have your hand on the table and just casually glance down, something you can't really do with the Series 3. Having said that, is it worth the big jump in price to going to the Series 5, 6, or 7? To be honest, for myself, it is not. Even though I would like an always-on display, I cannot justify the increase in cost. The next feature I want to talk about is ecosystem, and that is the ability to unlock my Mac with my watch. Now typically I use my Touch ID sensor on my MacBook Pro and found this to work very fast. But what is even faster than Touch ID is using my Apple Watch. I don't even have to think about it. As soon as I've lifted the lid on my computer, it is already awake and ready. This is absolutely seamless and could almost say it works like magic. Earlier I mentioned that I only allow certain notifications to come through, and the majority of which are messages, and I found receiving messages on my Apple Watch to be great. It is so nice to be able to quickly read a message as soon as it comes in. Then I typically will respond either with voice to dictation, which works very well, even in noisy environments such as walking outside next to traffic or in the wind, or simply responding with a quick emoji. Other features like a stand reminder that goes off every hour after sitting and working at your desk just encourages you to be more active and move more, which is always good. While Siri is by no means the best smart assistant out there, I found for some basic things it actually works very well. On my watch, I typically use Siri for setting a reminder whilst on the go or setting a timer while cooking. It's not that these things can't be done on my phone, but it's just easier and quicker to do it right on my wrist. It is small things like this that make me really grow to appreciate having the Apple Watch on my wrist. It just adds a certain level of convenience. Okay, let's talk about durability. Now, before this video, I had a very thorough inspection of my watch to see how it has held up or if there's any damage. Let's take a look. So first of all, on the display. Now, the Series 3 has a glass screen, and naturally, when wearing it every day, it's going to bump against a wall, railing, or a door, or all these kind of things. It just happens in day-to-day use. Now, taking a very close look at the display, I am pleased to say that there is no scratches whatsoever. Not even any small micro scratchers that you may expect over time, and I never use a screen protector or a case on my Apple Watch. And the same can be said for the aluminum frame. It is held up exceptionally well with no scratches, dents, or chips. As well as the color, there is no fading of the color or anything like that that you may expect with longer term use. Now, I did have one small issue with the digital crown. So one morning when I woke up, I noticed that the digital crown felt a little bit more difficult to turn, almost a little bit stiffer, as if something had gotten stuck, whether it be a grain of sand or some lint or some kind of debris. At which point I was actually quite worried, thinking I may have just ruined my digital crown. But thankfully, towards the end of the day, this seems to have corrected itself, and the digital crown moved just like normal, and this hasn't happened since and is still functioning well today. So no lasting damage from this incident, but I would advise you to be careful when thinking about bringing your Apple Watch to the beach. Taking a look at the watch band as well as the mechanism, both have also held up very well. Starting off with the mechanism, now I do want to mention that I'm not one to change the watch bands very frequently. In fact, I've been using the same black sports band every day since I got the watch, but I do on occasion take it off to remove it and clean it. And I found that during that process, the same lock mechanism hasn't changed at all and remains to be very durable and reliable. Looking more closely at the bands themselves, you can see some signs of use. You can definitely see which hole I typically use, and it's of course always the same size, and you can see there's a little bit of an outline around it, but this is actually on the inside of the band and is not visible on the outside at all. Additionally, any marks that you do see on the outside, for example from sweat or dirt or debris or say rainwater, these kind of things, you can just wash it off. I'll very frequently take off the band, run it under some water, and then just snap it back into the watch. I particularly like to do this after a workout. The watch is also waterproof. Now, I've never gone swimming with it just because I haven't had the opportunity to do so, but that said, I do frequently wear it out in the rain, especially with the unpredictable weather that we have here in London. And I've never had any issues with water staying stuck or any damage to the screen or buttons, microphone, speaker. Everything still functions very well. Let's talk about the battery. Now, two important questions to ask. First, does it last all day? And I'm pleased to say that yes, it absolutely can run all day. And secondly, has it changed at all over the past 6 months? Thankfully, the battery life has not changed and is just as good as the day I got it. Typically, what I'll do is first thing in the morning, I'll put my watch on charge, which I have on my nightstand. Then I will get ready for the day, shave, shower, etc. And after which I will take my watch off the charger, at which point it will usually have between 70 to 80% battery life, which on a normal day is plenty to get me through the whole day. And then I will basically put it back on charge the next morning, roughly when I wake up again. And I typically go through this cycle every day. Unless I know I'm going to go for an extended workout or let's say I'm traveling, only then I'll charge it to 100%. But otherwise, the battery life has been really good. An important thing to consider is that the way you set up your watch in terms of settings has a very significant impact on the battery performance. My battery life can range anywhere from 8 hours all the way to 50 hours, simply depending on how I've set up the watch. So settings like background app refresh, heart rate monitor, Siri really have a very big impact on your battery life. I've done a separate video in which I more thoroughly go over how exactly I've set up my watch, and I definitely recommend checking this out if you have a watch in order to maximize your battery life while still retaining the features that make the Apple Watch so great. Let's talk about the price. Now, Apple currently sells the Series 3 for $199 on their website. And while I think the Series 3 is a great watch, I do not think it is worth that price point. At that point, I would suggest paying a little bit more and going up to the Series SE, in which you get all those extra features, including a bigger and better display. As I mentioned in my review, I bought the Series 3 for $150 new, at which point I do think it is worth it. And I definitely recommend that if you're thinking of buying a Series 3 to find a discount. These are very common even when buying it new, or get it even more affordably when buying used. I think most importantly, what I can say is that the Series 3 allows you to experience the core features that make the Apple Watch so great, but does so at a more affordable price point. So if you can find the Series 3 for around $150 or less, if say you're looking for used, I would say go for it. At the end of the day, I have no regrets. I use my Series 3 every day and I am very happy to have it. And I also don't see myself upgrading to the SE or Series 6 or Series 7. That said, because I enjoy my Apple Watch so much, I am excited to see what Apple will bring in the future. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. If it helped you out, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.